What's up, everybody? It's Eat a Profit here to do another video. And this video is going to be called Non-Fighters Who the UFC Should Be Paying $1 million per fight. The reason why I feel the need to do this video is because we have some of the most dominant fighters ever sitting on the sidelines right now, primarily due to pay disputes. Khabib Nurmagomedov is not fighting right now. Now, his is not because of a pay dispute, but I get the feeling if they paid him $1 million to fight, he would be back. Henry Cejudo, one of the most dominant fighters ever in the UFC, is sitting on the sidelines right now, not fighting because of a pay dispute. John Jones also got into it with the UFC about pay. He's also been sitting on the sidelines since 2020. Francis Ngannou may end up leaving the UFC because of a pay dispute and not being paid what he feels he's worth. And I'm going to really talk about Francis in a minute. As y'all may know, I just did a video about how the UFC isn't equipped to do boxing, and Francis Ganu might leave because of that. But if not that, he's definitely going to leave if they don't do something about his pay. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's get to the video. The first person on the list who should be making at least, at a minimum, $1 million per fight is none other than the heavyweight champion, Francis Ngannou. Now, let me tell y'all something. I want to say right before COVID started, Stipe Miocic had gotten to some type of disagreement with the UFC about his pay. And I remember they bumped his pay up to $700,000 or $750,000. I can't remember which one. It was one of those two. So Francis Ngannou just fought Cyril Gane at UFC 270, and he made $600,000 for that fight. So you can. It should be pretty clear that Francis Ngannou probably feels very disrespected at this point, considering that he makes less than what Miocic was making 3 years ago. And he just knocked Miocic out, prior to him fighting Cyril Gane. So he probably has to be pissed and feeling very disrespected. There is no way that Francis Ngannou should be making less money than what Stipe was making, 3 years ago. That's outrageous. That's ridiculous. That needs to be fixed. Francis Ngannou, at a minimum, should get $1 million per fight. And to be honest, because we don't really know what Conor's gonna do, if I was the UFC, I would make Francis Ngannou the flagship fight and give him like maybe 1.1 or 1.2 million per fight. Make him the highest paid outside of Conor McGregor. That's what I would do if I was running the UFC. Francis Ngannou is the most special fight I've ever seen. There will never be another heavyweight like him for a long time. I guarantee it. And he definitely deserves that money. Moving on to number two. None other than the former flyweight and bantamweight champion, Henry Cejudo. Now, I'm going to say this. Henry Cejudo be probably, arguably, the greatest MMA fighter ever in the history of the UFC, and Demetrius Johnson. Now, I don't think Cejudo actually won that fight. I thought it was a draw at best. But the fact is, Henry Cejudo still did what really nobody else could do at the time, and that was go toe-to-toe with Demetrius Johnson for 5 rounds. And the fight was really, really close. So that fight says something about Henry Cejudo. And Henry Cejudo has knocked out every single fighter since he beat Demetrius Johnson. Every single one of them before he retired. Now, the problem with Henry Cejudo, he needs to get rid of the whole cringe aspect from his persona. I think it detracts from him. It takes away seriousness that he should be getting as a competitor. Like I said, he's one of the most dominant fighters in the history of the UFC. Champion in 2 different weight classes. And he definitely deserves that money. And it sucks that we're not seeing Henry Cejudo fight right now. The matches they can make with him and Peter Yan or Aljamain Sterling or Brandon Moreno if he went back down to 125, or Alexander Volkanovski at 145. There's all kind of big fights they could be making with this guy. Pay this guy a couple extra $100,000 and make millions off of him. To me, that's just good business. Henry Cejudo is another fighter who deserves $1 million per fight. Number 3 on the list, Kamaru Usman. I mean, I don't even have to really go into much here with Kamaru because, you know, he's just the best welterweight in the history of the UFC. And yes, that includes George St. Pierre. Nobody does it quite like Kamaru in terms of his power, his wrestling, his speed, his right hand. I mean, Kamaru does it all. And the UFC really needs to get behind him and Cejudo and Ganu as their flagship fighters, you know, all of them. You know, Ngono number 1, of course, but these other fighters, they need to put their promotional power behind these guys because these guys get it done. Kamaru Usman is one of the best fighters in the history of the UFC of any weight class. And he definitely deserves $1 million per fight, in my opinion. Number 4 on the list, Khabib Nurmagomedov. You know, Khabib retired, but let's be real. Khabib is the most dominant lightweight I've ever seen in the history of the UFC, and that includes the current fighters right now. I don't think Charles Oliveira can beat Khabib. I will put my money on Khabib if they haven't fought. I don't think Charles can handle his wrestling. I don't think anybody can handle Khabib's wrestling. That's how dominant he is. So why not pay this man $1 million and have him come back and fight and have some mega fights? Imagine him and Charles Oliveira. That would be huge. They can make a lot of money off of that. Pay this man some more money, bring him out of retirement. Khabib definitely deserves $1 million per fight, you know, as the most dominant lightweight ever. Number 5 on the list, Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya, the current middleweight champion, has not tasted defeat. Well, he did. I'm sorry. He did taste defeat when he went up to light heavyweight to challenge Jan Blachowicz, but at middleweight, he has never been defeated since he's been at the UFC, and he's beat a who's who of people at middleweight, everybody from Calvin Gastelum to Robert Whittaker to Marvin Vettori. He's beaten basically everybody. You know, with the exception like maybe 1 or 2 contenders, he hasn't fought yet. But he is definitely the man, highly skilled, highly athletic. You know, as you know, the rest of the guys on the list. I believe, in my opinion, Israel Adesanya deserves $1 million per fight because he's the man. And not only that, the one other thing I like about Israel is that he knows how to talk and have personality without acting like a WWE cartoon. That WWE stuff doesn't fly in the UFC. It just doesn't. It never has. Nobody's career has never been successful trying to emulate a WWE character. So Kobe, Henry Cejudo, you know, they really need to think about that, you know, going forward, you know, if they really want to, you know, achieve true success. Number 6 on the list, Amanda Nunes. Yes, I know Amanda Nunes just lost the fight, but regardless of that, prior to that, she was an absolute terminator, destroying everybody she faced. She's still a featherweight champion anyway, and Amanda Nunes is also one of the most special fighters we've seen, and I believe she definitely deserves $1 million per fight. Number 7 on the list, Valentina Chefchenko, somebody who I actually have ranked higher than Amanda Nunes. Valentina Chefchenko is the absolute destroyer of women. The only person she's lost to since she's been in the UFC is Amanda Nunes. Now, something to keep in mind, this is how great Valentina Chefchenko is. She has beaten everybody at 135 and at 125 with the exception of Amanda Nunes. Let that shit sink in for a minute. Valentina Chefchenko has beaten everybody at 135 and at 125. Everybody. Including the current champion, Juliana Pena. And, you know, Valentina Chefchenko is a beautiful woman. She's an intelligent woman. I can't for the life of me figure out why they don't promote this woman more. She is the baddest woman in the UFC. No, I mean, she just gets out there and annihilates and obliterates her competition. She's not a decision machine. She finishes people. So I don't see why they don't ever bring her up. The only time you ever hear about her is when she's about to fight. That's just insane. Valentina Chefchenko definitely deserves $1 million per fight. And they really, really need to put their muscle behind her and really get out there like on the talk shows, the talk circuit, the late night shows, all that. Like really get out there and let people know who she is. She's a fucking beast. And she definitely deserves that money, in my opinion. Number 8 on the list, Jorge Masvidal. I know Jorge Masvidal lost his last 2 fights against the champ, Cameron Usman, and got knocked out in his last one. But the thing is, honestly, I think after Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal may be the most popular fighter and may generate the biggest numbers outside of Conor McGregor. So for that reason, I believe Jorge Masvidal deserves $1 million per fight. And not to mention, whenever he fights, he's always going to bring it. He always brings it. Win, lose, or draw, you're not going to get a boring fight with Jorge Masvidal unless somebody else grounds him and makes it boring. Number 9, last but not least, Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is probably the 3rd most popular fighter outside of McGregor and Masvidal. And we all know that Nate Diaz also always brings it. He probably is the 3rd highest generator of pay-per-views at this point. And to be honest, for that reason, he also deserves $1 million per fight. When Nate comes, it's always going to be a good fight. Unless somebody grounds him like with Jorge. But if Nate is allowed to stand up, it's going to be fireworks. Because that's just how he does it. So, yeah, those are my 9 fighters. Everybody on this list, I believe, is a special fighter and worthy of $1 million per fight, which would literally be like a couple $100,000 per fighter per fight, which would basically be a couple $1 million. I believe is a very good investment to invest in their fighters. I mean, I know the UFC thinks it's all about the brand and that the fighters don't matter, but something they have to keep in mind. And I do agree that the brand, fighters come and go. That's just the nature of the business. And the brand is probably what's most important. But people don't pay to see a UFC logo. People pay to see fighters get in the ring and fight, the best of the best. That's what people pay to see. So that's something, the UFC needs to keep in mind when dealing with their fighters. And I believe these 9 fighters, if they bumped all of their salaries up, it would go a long way for the other fighters and give them something to strive for. Because, as I'm about to tell y'all, there's 4 other fighters who are I don't think they're quite there at the $1 million per fight, but they're close and they could be there at any moment, depending on how this year plays out. And those fighters are Charles Oliveira, Alexander Volkanovski, Glover Teixeira, and Rose Namajunas. I believe these 4 fighters, depending on how this year goes, they could also be right there ready to make that $1 million per fight. And that's my 2 cents. I really believe the UFC should pay these fights. Like Francis Ngannou, I really don't believe the UFC can afford to lose him, especially over something as silly as a couple $400,000, and pay this man his money. Pay all of these people their money. Let's see the best fights we can see. That's what the UFC has always been about, the best fights. We're not seeing the best fights because a lot of the fighters aren't fighting right now because of pay disputes. And I really hope the UFC, I hope the right person hears this video, sees this video, and can do something about it. Man, I wish I could represent these UFC fighters and negotiate on their behalf. I guarantee you I would get Francis Ngannou $1 million per fight. I guarantee it. And I would only charge 5%. I wish I could represent these fighters. I promise you, I would make the UFC see their value and give them what they're worth, But hey, what can you do? But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Thanks everybody for watching. Please like the video. Please leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Do you agree? Am I alone here? Or should these fighters be getting more money? Please share the video if you like. And please subscribe to the channel. Everybody, I love you. I love you. I love you. And everybody stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. Peace.